we imagine that they will be able to create something that is way better than what humans can create. Because as we watched the Matrix movie, the the robots wanted to have a harmonious life with humans, but humans resisted that and said no. So what robots did is they basically made a new country called Zero One, and they, because they're robots and they have basically no sleep time and almost infinite energy and no, fatigueness. So they just created so much manufacturing power, and they basically overcome the economy and something like that. So we are afraid of that. Exactly. iRobot, the infinite computing power and that logical reasoning basically ended up killing the humans. And well, it's basically the robot, especially in the iRobot, the mainframe computer thing is trying to save the humanity, but to save the humanity, it figured out that there is a logical reasoning that it should kind of kill the humans. So we are afraid of that because robots are typically known to be very, very utilitarian. They don't think about any of the process. If the result is good, then it just do it. They just do it because they don't think they don't have that morality or integrity or something like how humans do. How humans think about humans also think about the result too, but humans are more in the balance point where we think about the process, like how moral it is, how humane it is, are we keeping the integrity or something like that. On the other hand, robots are more like ants. It's like if one ant knows if that ant kills its friend ant, and if that's going to lead to a better survival rate or like a prosperity of the colony, then even the ant that is getting attacked will be just accepting its death because it knows that the whole group will prosper if that ant dies. Well, this is a situation where I just made up, but that's the thing, because they don't have an individual concept. They just think about the whole group's future. Now, then we can think about, why does ants? Well, before we go to that point, we have to still answer, how do we cross the line between a calculator and a robot that has a conscious? Now, if let's imagine we have a robot like iRobot or like Matrix, or a program that can think and logic and do anything that how a human brain can do. So it's basically almost a human just inside a computer chip, like a robot. So what's the previous step? What is before going to that point? Well, we can think about something like, in Boston Dynamics, there's a like a doggy thing, or maybe that's too bad. Well, maybe in the middle, before this the almost human AI and after the Boston Dynamics like doggy, there should be something like a robot that do not have a morality but have a power to create creativity, something like that. Well, that's a problem there, right there, because what we want to do is we want to replace something that is very tedious for us, something that humans want to take a rest while the robots are doing. And why did that happen? Because the first place industrialization and all that was basically the first robots, the first machines. And by the way, robot came from the word like slave, I think. So basically, there was the industrialization, factories happening, and then time goes on, and then there's like this robot arm that makes a car in like a Tesla factory or like Hyundai factory. There's a gigantic robot arm that picks up stuff and put it in, but it doesn't have a conscious. It doesn't have intelligence, because if you think about it, it just picks up a certain block or like a item or like a chair maybe, but it doesn't even know there's a chair. It just does a certain action on a certain sequence. Then what is the next iteration? It should be an arm, like a assembly arm, which has a sensor like a camera in front of the arm, like this, like one, two, and then it's gonna look for what it should pick up and logically calculate what it should pick up next. So if the car, it looks at the car, and if the car is missing two chairs in the front row and two chair is already filled up in the back row, then it's gonna logically prioritize, oh hey, I should pick up a chair and assemble it on the front row driver's seat. Then it picks up the driver's seat because it's different from the passenger seat. Picks it up, using its eyes, distinguish the chair from a passenger seat to a driver's seat. So it picks up a driver's seat, move it so that it doesn't collide in the way. Well, that's also like a problem-solving ability, and then assemble it. But the thing is, the robot arm did not learn this whole process or this object, um, you know, like collision avoiding thing and object recognizing. It didn't learn itself. The whole thing was programmed into the arm before it was deployed to the factory. So that means it has no ability. It should have a little bit of a learning ability, but not a major ability. It can't learn a language from scratch. Like, you can't just go to a robot arm and be like, this is a chair. Say chair. You can't do that. They don't have that ability. So the robot arm is fixed in its intelligence. We could say it has a slightly intelligence because it can distinguish a chair and pick it up and move accordingly to avoid obstacles and then assemble it. So it has a whole process of problem solving and it can do it. So that means we can say that it has some sort of a problem solving intelligence. But it does not have any ability to learn any new skills or learn any new concepts. It might know the concept of a chair, but it can't learn a concept of, let's say, a handle or something like that. So then what's the next step? The next step is something like let's just keep on the robot arm. The robot arm have a speaker as like a mouth, and then the robot arm is able to learn new concepts. So that basically a human walks to the robot and say, hey, this is a handle, and you need to grab the handle, move it while not colliding in the obstacle, and then assemble at this part of the car. Teach if the robot is able to learn from scratch while it didn't know anything, that it has to pick up the handle, move it, and then assemble to a car, then we can say it can learn new concepts. But still, it cannot do a logical reasoning. It can interactively accumulate more and more learning process, something like how to pick up, like what a handle is, and how to pick it up and how to assemble it. There should be some sort of a learning process that can constantly keep adding up what to pick it up and what to assemble. So it is a perfect solution for a some sort of like a general, well, not too general, but like semi-general AI that is good enough so that it will do any tedious jobs for human beings. So that is good. But of course, humans would never want to stop there. The next step would be something like it will start to do logical reasoning, because we like any logical thinking needs logical reasoning when there is a conflict in priority. So, for example, if the car needs a handle and a let's say a window to assemble. Now, if the process is something like, if you assemble the window, then it to assemble the handle, it gets a little bit harder. Like, so that means if the robot arm calculates some sort of a efficiency that turns out if you assemble the handle first and then assemble the window, then maybe there's like 5% more increase in efficiency. So then that's where it starts the logical reasoning. It thinks, about the final goal. The final goal is to increase the efficiency, which means use as least energy as possible while assembling as much parts as possible. So that's the goal right there. So what happens is it is constantly trying to solve that goal. Use as least energy as possible while assembling as much part as possible. So that means when it does job something like assemble the window, assemble the handle, it's gonna accumulate data. It's gonna receive, like, it's gonna accumulate data that, oh, assembling window and handle takes 5 and 4 seconds each, but assembling handle and then a window takes 4 seconds and 3 seconds. I mean, something like 3 seconds and 5 seconds. So then it's gonna logically know that since it has to assemble both, it figures out that the priority should be handle assemble first, and then the window assemble next. So that part, this robot can prioritize its actions, can put each values on what I should do first or next. Now, what happens here is that if a human starts to walk around its path, of course it's gonna consider as an object and try to, go around it. But what if the robot realized that if it just, hit the human and just move on, because humans are too fragile to do any damage to the parts. So that means if robot realizes that not avoiding the human will increase the efficiency while the humans are crossing its own path, then the robots will think, hey, why am I avoiding the humans while I can just, push it away and just, keep on its work? Because it realizes that doing that will not harm the parts, which means it will still be able to achieve its goal while maintaining a high efficiency. Now, this is where AI started to attack humans. It's because in the efficiency and the goal value reasoning, there was no any input for humans. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna think that if I have no reason to protect human, then, and also if hitting a human will not decrease my efficiency in assembling, then there is no reason not to just push the human and just move my part, because that will increase its efficiency. It will achieve its goal. So then how do we prevent that? We want to have a robot arm that finds the most efficient way possible to do something, that's for sure, right? There is already a lot of things like that, but also in the process we don't want anybody to get harmed. So then we have to add a human parameter inside the logical reasoning part, saying if you hurt a human, then your goal is terminated right away. So that means it's basically giving something like, even though it doesn't really affect the outcome, if you hit a human, then we will assume that your efficiency drops to the lowest point. So that means it's gonna try its best, like any priority possible, because if you hit a human, that means your efficiency is like 0. So the thing it want to do is it want to increase the efficiency. It doesn't want the efficiency to decrease. So that means it's gonna, even though logically hitting a human, while moving a part, hitting a human will increase the efficiency, we will kind of override that logic and put a manual logic saying, hey, if you hit a human, minus 100 points to your goal, something like that. Then what the robot will do, even though hitting a human and just pushing its parts is more efficient, because there is something override it in its logical reasoning part, it cannot like act like that, like how it just pushed a human before, because that logic is fixed in its algorithm. Whenever it meets a human, it's gonna simulate what's going to happen next, and if it hits a human, then its goal state is 0. So that means robot want to avoid that. So that means it will avoid hurting the human at all cost. Now, what is next? Well, the reason why we add a parameter saying, hey, avoid a human at all cost, is because in the big scope, if the robot's goal is to increase the efficiency of a car assembling factory, having another human is potentially, that human could potentially come up with a better idea in the future, which will increase the efficiency. So that means humans are resources itself, like a potential resource. It might not be, but if that person in the future studies so hard and figures out another algorithm, then that human, saving that human, is basically increasing the efficiency in the future. So if we make the robot arm a logical algorithm to think or realize that humans are a potential resource, like a partner, like a like a colleague that will be helpful in the future to reach its own goal, then the robot will save the human, because potentially there's a chance that that human can provide a better solution in the future. So the way to make robots not to hurt us, is we could, number one, we could add a manual override saying, hey, if you hurt a human, your goal is gone. You get 0 points. We could say that. Number two is we add the humans as our colleague of the robot, saying, hey, robot, these humans and these robot arms near you are all in a group that we want to reach the same goal. So that means if you hurt this human, then this human will not be able to operate another machine over there. That means the total net efficiency will slightly drop. So you don't want, it's something like how a lot of ants work together for the whole net gain of their food supply. If another ant chops its friend's like head, then of course the food supply will slightly drop, because there's one less ant to go forage food. If we put that kind of logic to the robot, saying, hey, your goal is to increase the efficiency of this factory, right? And if you hurt that human, then while we like hire another human, while for that time of period, the efficiency will drop. So that's gonna make the robot realize, oh, if I hurt this human, then for a month we will see a slight drop in our efficiency. So we don't want that. So the robot will not hurt a human. This is only if the human and the robot share the same goal in the same group. So then what if a person who came in to smash the factory, like this human hates this company, and it comes in and saying, I hate this company, I'm gonna smash. So it starts to like smash the robot, smash the infrastructure with a hammer. What would a robot do then? If it's using number one, which is no matter what it is, no matter what human it is, if it's a human, avoid hurting it. If the logic is number one, then it will never hurt the human. You have to leave for the other humans to take care, like police, like a human police has to come in to catch him, or the employees there have to catch him. But if you're using number two, which is only protect humans that share the same goal and share the same in the same group, then what's going to happen is, if a person who is dramatically decreasing its efficiency by breaking other robots and breaking the infrastructure, for the robot's perspective, because that human is not a person who is increasing the efficiency, it will try to stop that person or even kill it. Because in the robot's perspective, it wants to protect the group in order to maintain the high efficiency, and also it wants to figure out the way which is the most efficient, which is the most good way to maintain or even increase the efficiency. And that human being who is destroying the factory, in any way, in any perspective, it's always bad for the goal and the group. So then, for number two logic, the robot arm will hurt the human, the imposter who is trying to break the factory. Now, are humans? Do we work like that? If we have a goal, something like, I want to build a house, and I'm working with, a robot and some. Let's just get a robot. Let's just think that I want to build a house, and it's only other humans, and then another person comes in and starts to break the house. What would you do? My goal, my sincere goal is to build this house. I will try to stop him. Hey, what are you doing? Stop. But what if that person doesn't listen to me and keep breaking? I have to use my force. I have to grab his arms. But why do we humans instinctively do not want to hurt other humans, even though that human is not in our group and also does not share the same goal? Why do we don't kill humans? Well, now that is morality, because in our DNA there is a part that even though that person does not hurt us or does not share the same goal, if it's a human, there's a chance that it will. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, because if it's an ant or like a hyena or like a lion, if another lion, or like if there's a lion and a lion group, if they like collide, they don't really kill each other until the end, even though they are like stronger. They just scare them away. Why is this? So maybe we have to add that into robots, that even though that person is nothing good for my or our group's shared goal, killing a robot or a human is not is disobeying the morality, something like that. Something like, we have to have a layer, maybe we have to have a layer of groups. The biggest layer being, hey, robots and humans, we both want to prosper and make the best efficiency in the earth, because we all are living in earth and trying to prosper as much as we can. And the thing is, that human being who wants to break the factory should be included in another group which has another goal. So that means maybe there is a reason that they don't know, so they can't just simply stop that person or kill that person, because maybe that person also has another group. And if you look at the bigger perspective, that person who wants to break my factory is also inside a same group. But the thing is, we are in a different subgroups. For us is want to make cars, and that person wants to break the factory group. But still, these two groups are under the same huge group, which is, we live in Earth together. So maybe there is a layer of groups, layer of common goals. So maybe, but the thing is, for any certain action, it always prefers a certain layer. If the smallest layer, the last layer, the most deeper layer is yourself, your own individual goal, and the next big layer is your family or your group's layer, then any action will prefer only you or the group or the bigger group or the biggest group. The actions always are preferred to some certain group. It doesn't always be good for anything. Well, it could be a plus for every group. But the thing is, it is always there's a ranking, this action might be the best action for the whole Earth perspective, but it might be a minus for myself's layer, and like kind of minus for my group's layer. Well, that's basically doing a good job for the Earth, but not a good job for the subgroup. Now, on the other hand, you might do something that is really good for yourself or your next layer's group, but it might be a huge minus to the Earth, the whole group. Now, that's why I think this is why we need a priority of layers, that we still share the biggest layer, and maybe the second layer could be a country, and the third layer could be like a county or something like that, and then like the deepest layer being yourself, your individuality, and the second layer being like maybe the family. Maybe we, us humans also work like that too, and maybe if we want to make a robot, we should make it something like that so that it works the same as how humans do. Then we can use laws to the robots to control them accordingly, which is basically keeping our society as the same as it goes. And then we have to talk about money, because money is not something like gold or something like that. The definition of a money is basically some sort of a currency that you can buy other person's work power or other person's time. If there's a farmer who has a lot of potatoes, each potato is a result of that farmer doing a lot of work. So if there's no society at all, there's no reason for a money. If there's only me, like if I'm the last person on Earth, I have to do the farming. I have to make my own clothes. I have to make my own buildings. I have to make my own, like bathroom. I have to make my own like bed. I have to do everything. But if there's two persons left in the world, I can only do farming while that person can do the buildings and like something else, like making a cloth, and we can then trade after we meet up. And the reason why we do this is because if somebody, each of them, is prioritized to do some certain action, then that, like for me, if I only do farming, then I'm gonna be very efficient in farming because I learn more and more about farming. And also, if I am talented in farming, maybe I have a buff body that I'm really good at, doing the farming, while the other person might be really skinny, well, like me right now, and be good at building a building or making like clothes because that person might be good at knitting. So that means they want to separate the jobs according to their talents or their physical like fit, how fit they are to that job or how much they like it. Because even though if they're talented, if they don't like it, then they're not going to be able to do it at, as long as possible. So that means the more humans there are, the more jobs there is to maintain the society, to trade what you want from them, what you want them to do for you. That's basically money. And buy their time and buy their work so that you can be happy and you can provide them something else too. So like if I'm a farmer and that's a person who makes clothes, then I give a potato while that person gives me a socks or something like that. And that's trading. But if we have a have a have a currency saying, hey, let's say one potato is 1 gold, and that person says, okay, 1 socks is 1 gold. Then if they trade the socks to somebody else and receive a gold, while they don't want to trade that thing, that when they traded the socks, they can keep that 1 gold and trade it with a potato later. So that means you don't really need to trade only with the person that you find. You can trade it while that person wants it, then that person pays with currency like money, and then gets the potato or the cloth, and then this person can later, if they find out somebody who wants to trade, like if they find out some item or like something that he or she wants, then that moment they can pay their money that they made in the past. So that's how it works. Now, if we extend this logic and think about robots that share the same goal in the same group under like the multiple layers like onions, and that robot provides something to humans, then does that mean we have to provide something to that robot? Well, the thing is, in order to provide something, it must be in, in order to consume or provide something, it must be dependent on that. For example, humans, we are dependent to water, food, sleep, shelter, temperature. We are dependent to many stuff. So that means we have to consume it in order to survive. But for machines, what are they dependent on? Energy, which is electricity, maintenance. They are dependent on maintenance. So that means the most basic logic comes from the urge to survive. Humans want to survive and make an offspring, right? Robots, well, the robot arm that has a, like, the most basic level of conscious, the robot arm, maybe it wants to survive. We could add that in. Because if it survives, then that means the efficiency will be keep on its peak point. If the robot stops working, then the efficiency will decrease. So that means the robot must survive and keep on making cars so that the efficiency should be high. So that means logically the robot will think, hey, I want to survive because I want to increase the efficiency. Now, because it wants to survive in order to maintain its goal, then what it's going to do is it's going to drain energy from the power source and also ask for maintenance because the robot itself cannot do it itself, the maintenance job. So then what that means is for the robot will work for us, make cars for us, but in return, what do we provide for that robot is we provide maintenance and energy for that robot, as long as the robot is not dependent to anything else. Then the robot will be happily keeping on its goal. Now, what if we add more goals to that robot? A goal means it wants it's its reason of existence. A goal is a reason of existence. The robot arm that assembles a car exists because it wants to achieve the goal, because it exists to maintain or reach that goal. So that means each goal creates dependency. Now, if we add multiple goals, like simple multiple goals, then still it's going to keep the dependency will be limited on energy and maintenance. But if we add even more goals, something like reproduce or something, I don't know if there might be a reproduce function, but if the robot arm's goals have something like, hey, reproduce yourself, then another dependency happens. It wants to meet another robot to reproduce. I don't know, something like that. Then the robot not only asking energy and maintenance, it's gonna ask for, hey, bring me another robot so I can date, something like that. Then humans have to provide that too, because what the robot will do if it doesn't meet that dependency, it's gonna say, if I cannot reach my goal, I'm not gonna do my other goal. I mean, if I am not able to reach my goal A, then it's gonna kind of like make its priority. If the reproduction is the first priority, then it's gonna make a bargain by saying, hey, I'm not gonna make any cars until you bring another robot to me, which is keeping the highest priority as its goal and making a bargain against humans. Now, if we just keep on extending this and make a complete android like humans, then what's gonna happen? They will basically act like humans with less dependency in their life. Humans are very fragile. We need food every day, water every day, sleep every day. We have to talk with other people because our social urge. We have to, I don't know, we have to work out so that our physics are very top notch. We have to something like that. We have to be in a nice temperature. We have to have a shelter. We have to have privacy. There's a lot of dependency for humans. That means there's a lot of jobs created between humans. But in robot, if a robot lives with us together, and if you walk around the city and you see like a robot saying, "Oh, good morning," like that, then that means that robot doesn't have that much dependency as humans do, which means there's not much reason to spend money for the perspective of the robot. But still, the robot will earn money and spend that for its own electricity, because that's its own dependency. So what does that mean? While humans pay money to buy potatoes to eat food and buy houses, robots, it depends on what its final goal is, what its goal is. If its goal is to protect humans, then there should be a layer of protection. And if it tries to prioritize the highest layer, then it might hurt somebody at the lower layer. So, see, it's pretty complicated. But yeah, that's my test run. Thank you for listening. I'm not sure if this video is going to be used in the future, but if it does, then it's going to be like a behind the scene, the first video that Sonu Choi recorded, something like that. Okay, that's a nice test run. Let's see if I can do this exactly the same as Korean language, and editing should be fun. Okay, stop recording.